Welcome in. What's up, everybody? The bass is dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down Here AM. I'm Jason Longshore, filling in for Jon Nelson. He's on high school football duty this week. He'll be back on Thursday. No show tomorrow due to scheduling. No Atlanta soccer tonight this evening as well on 92.9 The Game. College football bowl season kind of takes precedent. But I will have an Atlanta soccer flashback for you later tonight. We're going to dig deep into the 1930 World Cup. It's been fun kind of researching that one and digging into it. What's up, Alex? What's up, Ricky? What's up, everybody watching and in the Twitch pitch and in the chat, wherever you are? This is kind of an open ended show, honestly. There's some stuff I want to get into, some stuff from yesterday, the College Cup, which was a really fun game. And I want to talk about golden goals. I want to get into the chaos that was Manchester United and Bournemouth yesterday. Every time I looked up, that game kept changing. It's just nuts. What's up, Modiflow? I want to talk about Tyler Adams and what his injury could mean for the U.S. men's national team. Hopefully, it's just a sprain. Hopefully, it's nothing too bad. We'll have to wait and see. Um, and beyond that, it's kind of open ended. I mean, like, I'm interested in the Intercontinental Cup tomorrow with Flamengo and PSG. I'm very intrigued by that match. Flamengo's manager, Felipe Luis, one to watch. I think he'll be in Europe sooner rather than later. And he had some good things to say about Flamengo keeping with what they want to do and how they play. Sheffield Wednesday is down to the final three in terms of potential buyers. One of them's Mike Ashley. Liverpool fans are shuddering at the moment. Trying to think of what else is really on my mind as we go this morning. Yes, congratulations, Monoflo. I will tell John that he is messing up all of your evening rituals, Alex Pacine. Sorry you did not get PBS NewsHour. I'm sure you could find it in other places. Um, I'm sure you could find that in maybe the YouTubes, maybe other spots. But yes, the Georgia high school playoffs are preempting, and Madison Cruz is part of this as well. She's involved in preempting your stuff as well. Doing sideline. She's back there today. She's there tomorrow. John's there all week, and then John will be back here on Thursday. Let's start with Tyler Adams and just the possibility of injury with him. It sounds like it's MCL, which is much better than ACL. Hopefully, this is a weeks, not months kind of injury for Tyler Adams, because when we start going through the hierarchy of U.S. men's national team players that you can do without the least, top three, maybe number two behind Christian Pulisic. I think I would probably argue that. Chris Richards is probably in that conversation as well. I think those are the three that I keep coming back to that are essential for the U.S. men's national team next summer. Adams is critical because I think he just fills not just the role in what he does in the context of the game, but sorry, I'm going to have to speak that name here in just a little bit. I apologize in advance. I'll put the adult language thing up just in case because yeah, we're gonna have to talk Mike Ashley. But Tyler Adams, I think he brings you a lot in terms of mentality and vibe as well. I think he's so important for this group to be able to play in the way that you want. Now, we've seen with Mauricio Pochettino as he has shifted more to a 3-4-2-1 kind of idea, 3-4-3. I mean, whatever. Formations, you guys know by now. I hate them and I despise them, and I think people take them too rigidly. He's going to play three center backs. I think it suits this group. When you do that, you more often than not, and you could go 3-5-2 and play three in the midfield. More often than not, you go with two central midfielders, and they're going to get support. And it looks like a box midfield from the two attacking midfielders. But those guys are half wingers and half tens, and they're going to float. They're not going to be as structurally solid defensively. So you need two central midfielders who cover a lot of ground, who aren't afraid to get stuck into a tackle, who got a little bit of bite to them, but can also play. Tyler Adams gives you that. It's not an easy spot to replace with this group. I don't think there's another Tyler Adams in the player pool. I think there's guys who can give you aspects of that, but I don't think there's another Tyler Adams. So hopefully, and look, he's got an injury history. So every time there's an injury with him, I get concerned because he's had so many. Hopefully, this happened on blocking a shot. So that makes me feel a little bit better about it probably being a sprain, unless there was pre-existing damage we didn't know about, anything like that. So hopefully this is a short-term sort of thing, and you're not going to be without Tyler Adams at the World Cup. Hopefully he is back in full form there. Hopefully you can keep Christian Pulisic in the form that he's in right now. He's killing it. I feel really good about this U.S. men's national team right now. I've said it consistently everywhere that I've been. We had the conversation yesterday with Bart Keeler. You got to get out of the group. I don't think you have to win the group for it to be successful. I think you should win the group. They are favorites for a reason. Turkey won't be easy to deal with. That's a good team. The U.S. should not be worried about not being able to get past Paraguay and Australia. Doesn't mean they're easy. I think the U.S. should win this group, and then you start to look at, okay, what can happen for you past that? To me, you have to win a round of 32 game. If you win the group, signature win, Modiflow. Oh, don't get me started on that terminology. Um, I don't know if I think maybe people have agreed that you have that now with the win over Uruguay, which I don't know if it's all that different than some of the other wins that you had before that, but I digress. Um, he doesn't have his best 11 yet either, and everybody's going to yell about that, and he can get in line with the other 48 teams in the World Cup to answer that question, because I don't know if anybody really truly has their best 11 for next summer nailed down yet. But anyway, because don't get me started on the hashtag USMNT side of things. I get so frustrated because, and I'll tell you why. I get this in a different way than probably a lot of you do with what I do with 92.9 The Game, and I love that we are in a position here in Atlanta to have the sports talk station in town, one of the highest rated stations in town. Period. Music, news talk, whatever. 92.9, like during the day, is for guys 25 to 54 is number one station in the city, across all genres. The fact that a station with that kind of power will, one, give me an opportunity to talk on it, but just have soccer conversations weaved into things just like they weave in the Hawks and weave in anything else going on in sports. It's amazing, and it's a huge opportunity for Atlanta, and it's why Atlanta is the city that it is for soccer. Yeah, Monoflow, it's crazy. It's crazy. This isn't about, what we do and what others do on the, the more independent media side of things. I'm talking like mainstream. And where I get so frustrated when I come back into the hashtag USMNT space, or the soccer space, is so often it's so negative and toxic, and everything sucks and everything's bad, and just depressing. When I go into another space, what happens often is, one, you get the excitement about the growth. You get people who have grown up in sports and are excited for soccer to be around more. Maybe their kids play, maybe they've seen some World Cup games, maybe they played the video games, whatever it is for them that the touchstone is. They're excited that it's growing. They're excited they can go to an Atlanta United game and there's a huge crowd. They're excited about the NWSL coming. They're excited about World Cup coming. You get that side of it, and that's great. I love that. And that's what's going to grow the game in this country. It's not going to be the miserable people on social media who hate everything. It's going to be the people who are new and excited. But the part that scares me, because it's what we do, right? When we, it happens to me, I'm preparing for the intersection, or I'm preparing to fill in. I'm going to be on a Christmas Eve on 92.9, and I'm getting caught up on everything else going on, and I'm doing my research and I'm studying. And yeah, you look at what's going on social media to get a pulse point of what's happening. So when people like that are not, that don't come in with the biases that maybe we do in the soccer world, and they come into, oh, let's see what's going on with the U.S. men's national team. Holy crap! Everybody hates this team. And why do they hate this team? Like they're undefeated in their last five. Like what are they so angry about? So when I talk to people who aren't as embedded in our world as we are, a lot of their questions are like, as a U.S. men's national team, are they're gonna be able to get along and get it together? Is Pochettino going to be able to get it together with this group because they're not following as close as us? So they're still maybe on what happened over the summer. They're still maybe again on what the hashtag says and what some online pundits say and what some online just influencers say. And that drives me crazy because if you've watched this team over the last three sets of international dates, this is a good team. If you look at this team's body of work over the last World Cup cycle, this is a good team. It's that balancing act that I think we have to understand. This is not a World Cup winning contender. They're not. And that's okay that they're not. There's a lot of teams in the world that are great soccer countries that are not in that conversation. Uruguay is not in that conversation about being a contender to win the World Cup. Do they dream that things can fall their way and do it? Absolutely they do. Colombia, absolutely they dream. That's where we need to be with it, is understanding, yeah, this team's not a favorite. This is a good team. This is a team that should be in the round of 16. And then you never know how a tournament can go. Go back to 2002. You faltered in game 3 of the group stage, but that ended up being a blessing because you get Mexico in the knockout game and you beat them. And then you get into a quarterfinal where you outplay Germany, you got to the final. The U.S. very easily could have been in the semifinal, and who knows then from where. Germany got to the final. Could the U.S. have gotten to the final in 2002? It's not crazy to think about because of the way that tournament broke. This is a good team. We need to be excited and happy about where things are, not constantly down, because there's so many metrics and so many things. As I've broken out a soapbox in full form here this morning, there's so many different things that point to growth, positivity, excitement. And I don't know why so often in our conversation that does permeate through to the mainstream sports conversation. And yes, if you love soccer, we need people in the mainstream sports conversation talking about soccer because that's where you grow. The negativity gets through there, and then it stays clouded when we should be looking at things that are just spectacular right now with this game in this country. We get into this stuff like, oh well, when MLS put out their viewership numbers, the way I saw it reported was not MLS viewership up, blah, blah, blah. It was MLS says their viewership is up. You don't do that with NFL. You don't do that with NBA. You don't do that with Major League Baseball. Why are we doing that with MLS? And then it's, oh, well, the attendance was down or whatever, or this percentage was down. Well, what about other spots where it's up? You have to work really hard to be negative and say that things are not growing and not in a good place. You have to work at it. Why? If you love the game, why? Leave that to the old Louis Grizzards of the world who would latch on to any possible thing to slam soccer and they would do it. That happened. That was in 2010. I remember seeing local news outlets after the U.S. beat Algeria in the World Cup, and we are in the midst of celebrating at the local bar after lunch because I think that was a 10 a.m. kickoff. There were shots involved. It was a crazy day at the old diesel filling station in Virginia Highlands. But I remember then, and this is kind of early days of Twitter, seeing local news outlets, very reputable news outlets, posting negative soccer articles in 2010 because of whatever. Somebody got mad because soccer was having a moment. Why are we doing it to ourselves when we love this game? Constantly finding something negative to talk about. It drives me insane. Yeah, I gripe about it a lot because I don't like seeing self sabotage. And I don't like, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's the indie music idea that you don't want to share what you love with the rest of the world. You want to still be cool because it's your thing, it's not mainstream. I don't know. I don't know where it comes from, but it's insane. Nielsen, which their rating situation, it's not perfect, but they are the gold standard in audience measurement, whether we're talking TV, whether we're talking radio, anything in measurement of audience. They're the gold standard. They released a new Tops of Sports report that looks at the forces that are shaping U.S. sports media in the year ahead. So they broke down 7 areas to watch. Multi-platform live sports. They talked about soccer's continued momentum right now as one of their key elements of this report. They talked about Major League Baseball's audience diversifying, which is great to see because it hadn't for a long time. They talk about the rise of women's sports, where soccer is a leading factor in that. The NBA, their influence on brand sponsorships, golf's broader reach, and sports documentaries on streaming, which is another area where soccer is growing. So, this report from Nielsen, soccer is cited as an example of how casual viewership can spike at times, and major international cycles, major international events are a big thing. So, from the report, and from other reports too. I mean, Nielsen does their research. This is the gold standard. 51% of people globally identify as soccer fans. It's funny. I kind of thought that might be a little bit higher. 51% globally. Only 27% of Americans say the same. That's up. It used to be around 20%. That feels like that's grown pretty significantly over the last probably decade. 20% was kind of the number. 27 now is the number. That's awesome. But that's also opportunity, right? That's 73% that are not soccer fans. I'd like to go convert them. That's where we need to be putting our focus and our energy. US viewership is continuing to climb dramatically around the major events. We saw it with the World Cup draw being a record viewership for English language coverage of a World Cup draw. The World Cup's going to be insane. Here in the US, it's going to be insane worldwide. International competitions pull in some of that 73% that are not soccer fans. But hey, this is a big game and everybody's talking about it. I should tune in. Hey, my friends are having a party to go watch this game at their house. Let's go. Hey, my friends are going to the bar to watch this. This should be really cool. Let's go. That's what happens with big Olympic events. That's what happened with Dream Team. That's what happened with U.S. basketball. It's what's happened with hockey. I remember big events around the U.S. and hockey in the Olympics, all those kinds of things. You might not be a hardcore fan, but it's like, hey, this is a big deal. It's an international event. I'm in. The World Cup's a huge opportunity for that. The average U.S. audience for Copa America 2024 compared to 2021 doubled. The UEFA Women's Euro, huge growth. CONCACAF Gold Cup, huge growth. These are all areas where what that does is then that benefits the domestic leagues, the day-to-day. NWSL, MLS. NWSL grew their audience by 5%. Their fan base, 39.3 million, according to Nielsen, up from 30.8 million in 2023. 64% of NWSL fans are men, which is fascinating. I would not have guessed that number was quite that high. So, what Nielsen is predicting for 2026 and beyond is a surge of growth because of World Cup. You're going to then see that added on to by the Women's World Cup in 2027. Here locally, you're going to see, I think, all of that added onto by the launch of the NWSL team in 2028. Then you're going to have the Women's World Cup here in 2031. You potentially will have the Copa America here again in 2028. That has been talked about. What does that tell you? It tells you that the game is in the healthiest spot it has ever been. We have more professional teams than we have ever had in this country. We have more professional women's teams than we have ever had in this country. We have more professional academies than we have ever had in this country. More players are being developed at a high enough level to play professionally than ever before in this country. We have more media covering the game than we've ever had before in this country. We have more people buying tickets to go watch games than ever before in this country. These are all great things. That's why we celebrate this. That's why when we talk soccer here in the SDH network, and why when we get into these things, we come at it from maybe a different perspective than other outlets will. The reason why? I don't care about short-term clicks. I don't care about saying things to get a reaction. I'm not playing radio with you. I don't care about saying what some people in the audience think that we should say to be cool. I could care less. I'm telling you how I feel. Madison tells you how she feels. Jon tells you how he feels. Nick definitely tells you how he feels. Jarrett definitely tells you how he feels. It's what we do. Drew tells you how he feels. Our crew is all bought into. We love the sport. We love these crazy stories. We love these serious stories. We love the growth. We love where the game is right now. And we hope to bring that forward in 2026 and beyond. And yeah, I'm so much more interested in growing the game to the 73% of the United States that is not a soccer fan yet. That's more appealing to me than fighting within the 27% for people who maybe don't like MLS or don't like NWSL or only watch Liga MX or only watch the Premier League. And they're negative to the point of being obnoxious at times about where the domestic game is. Cool. That's fine. I'm not like you'll be there when the moment's big. You'll be there. That's fine. I'm not worried about you. I'm worried about the 73% because what happens is that's how the 20% goes to 27% in terms of Americans who are fans of the game. And that's how this growth continues. It is not from convincing a lifetime Bournemouth fan that they need to become an Atlanta United fan. If they've already made up their minds about that, I'm not, I don't care. I'm not worried about it. I don't need to convince a Club America fan to abandon their team and only support Atlanta United. No, it's not worth the effort to try to get there because it's probably not going to happen, and that's fine. Those fans are going to be there when Atlanta hosts World Cup games. They're going to be at a fan festival. If Atlanta United is in the MLS Cup final, they're going to try to find a ticket to it because it's a big deal. When Atlanta NWSL is in the NWSL championship, they're going to try to be there because it's a big deal. They might not be bought in day to day. That's fine. But I'll tell you what, because I've watched it firsthand, when you're able to go convince a Falcons fan, a Hawks fan, Braves fan, who has exactly Alex. I probably should have used a different one, but Bournemouth was on my mind because of the game yesterday. Um, when you can convince a fan who doesn't have any soccer affinity yet at all, hey, this is a fun time. Hey, these players are amazing. Hey, they're great athletes. Hey, these stories are great. Hey, the drama is awesome. Watch the 4-4 game from yesterday. Hey, you're going to enjoy your experience. Hey, here's a beer. Like, welcome. When you're able to do that, that's when the game grows. And this is why I go back to the first thing I said before I put the soapbox away for a little while. This and what we do in our space, in our soccer space. Alex, watch your mouth. This is what we do in our space where we celebrate the game. And we hope that the people who are coming in to find us, who are looking from the outside and like, man, I kind of like the soccer thing. I'm interested. Where can I learn more? When they try to look and learn more, and everything is Pochettino sucks, the national team sucks, Pulisic sucks, like all that kind of nonsense that you will find anytime on hashtag USMNT, and it's not just that. I mean, it's any aspect of it. I think soccer fans at times are performative with their negativity, and it's a shame because casual fans don't necessarily understand that, and they don't get it, and it's a turnoff. So soapbox put away for a little bit. I'm sure it will come back out at some point tonight. I agree with you, Monoflo. Poach has been very good. I I think he's done the job. I think he's been very, very good. His job is to win a knockout game next summer. I think he's got the team in a position to do that. You can't expect him to make players better because that's not his job as a national team coach. He has settled on a system that I think suits the group of players that he has. You have to find that. It doesn't happen magically. You're not getting that from playing a video game. You're not getting that from a training session. You're getting that over time. He did. He shifted to the three center backs, which I think really works for this group. I like what he's done. I really like the things that he said. I like that he has pushed the envelope. I like that he's challenged people in the game. I like that he's not just taken criticism, sitting down and not feeling like he can push back. I've really enjoyed what he's done for the game in this country, and I'm really excited about what he'll do for the game over the next 6 months. I do think he will go back to the Premier League starting next season, and good for him. He should. He'll be in demand. He should be. He has done the job here, and he's been, I think, everything that U.S. Soccer hoped he would be. We need to work together to grow this stuff, and we're in a really good spot. There should be a lot of positivity about the game right now, not some of the frustrating negativity that happens. Doesn't mean it's perfect. Doesn't mean we can't call things out when it needs to get called out. But the game's in a great spot, and I think it's on all of us who love it to continue to see it grow. All right, I want to get into one area of growth is the college game. Game last night. If you haven't seen the highlights, go on YouTube, pull them up. Washington and NC State, 2-2. Washington went up 2-0. NC State came back to tie it, and then you get into the golden goal overtime. I say overtime. I always have to remember when I'm doing a college game to try to use the terminology right. It's like I reverse my brain because we say extra time in the international game and the domestic game. But then in college, and then I might say overtime second when I'm doing a broadcast on 92.9, for example. I'll say extra time because that's the standard. And then I might explain it's overtime. Say that second as the synonym. I have to flip my head and reverse that for college games because they call it overtime. Ricky, I'm kind of with you. Like and Modiflow is against it. Like I'm kind of with the golden goal. Not gonna lie. I'm also somebody who likes the 35-yard shootout, but anyway. I have seen it quite a bit in college over the last few years. Yes, that was a good typo. Um, I like what it does to the game because how often do we see it? So just again to set the scene last night. Washington scores 2. They're up in the 60th minute or so. It's kind of a road game for them. The final was in Cary, North Carolina, just down the street from Raleigh and campus for NC State. Both teams looking for their first national championship. Good game, really good game. Two good teams. Players who you'll see in MLS starting next year for sure. Goes to overtime. It is golden goal. So first goal wins. We did this. What era was it? I think it was 99 to 2002. I don't think it wasn't in the World Cup in 2002. I think it was in that cycle in between the 98 World Cup and the 2002 World Cup that internationally we played with golden goal for a while. I like, and Ricky, I'm gonna come back to that in a second. I'm gonna let me mark this because I'm gonna come back to this one. Because I do want to get into the duality of this. But if you're going to go to extra time, you're going to go to overtime. I like golden goals. I think so often when you don't, teams are tired, teams get defensive, and you play not to lose, not to fall behind, as opposed to the opportunity to go win it with a moment. I like golden goal. I really do. I would be completely fine with it if that became the international standard. And look, I know people are going to get bent out of shape. That's fine. I think it has a positive impact on the game. However, when we talk about extra time in general, I think Ricky has a point here. The penalty shootouts. And I'd love to see 35 yards, but again, I'm a sicko. I like that we're starting to see competitions go to a shootout as opposed to having extra time at all. And I think in some competitions and some stages of competitions, I am completely good with no extra time and going straight to a penalty shootout because of the wear and tear, the fatigue, the amount of minutes these players play. Like cup competitions, especially when in England and other countries where you're going to have a league cup and an open cup and your 38 game league competition and play in Europe, and you're looking at 50, 60, 70 games in a year. Brazil, I mean, 70 games is nothing. Um, I like that in cup competitions, a lot of times in those situations, they're just going straight to penalties to decide it. I'm good with that. I also would like to see when you deem to use extra time using golden goal. I like it. I like it. Um, yes, you will get some teams in it who are generally defensive, who will try not to make a mistake and will not be bold and go try to win the game. I think it just opens up different tactical ideas. Like, and I'm really impressed with Washington, who ended up winning last night. They said, and they didn't do what we see a lot of teams do in these situations. You've had a 2-0 lead and you blew it. most dangerous lead in soccer. I hate that cliche. But ultimately, in this one, all the momentum has swung against you because you've given up a 2-goal lead. And instead of saying, oh, man, we better just sit back and hold on, they went the other way with it and said, no, let's go win this thing. We don't want to let NC State continue to grow. And they pinned NC State in really quickly in overtime and ended up finding the golden goal, I think, 2 minutes in. College, they do 2 10-minute periods of golden goal. They switch ends after 10 minutes. Maybe that adds a little bit to it as well because it's a little bit shorter period of time, so you feel a little more urgency. I don't know. I like it. I've definitely been won over by the possibility of golden goal. There's a lot of things like that I'm debating. We kind of got into it a little bit yesterday, and go back and check it out on the podcast feed or on demand on YouTube, wherever you consume the show. The game's changing, and it should, and I think every sport does. We see things like pitch clocks in baseball, and we've seen basketball make rule changes, and the NFL and how they use replay, and college. It all evolves because we have more ability to use technology, and that changes the rules. The rules change because players change, the game changes. I'm all for evolving in these sports, and I think soccer is one that maybe has been a little slower to evolve because of the overall worldwide nature of it. Also, I think differences in how it's played in different countries and the resources that are available for it to be played in different countries. But I like that the game is finally starting to. I think the offside rule is probably the next major evolution for this sport because of how now you've gotten into this situation of now, instead of relying on the eyesight of an assistant referee who might be looking through a crowd to put the flag up, which is what we did for 100 years, 100 plus years. So hopefully that guy's getting his eyes checked, and hopefully he's on the 20/20 scale, and hopefully he's not screened when he makes this decision. Instead of relying on that, when that person was told, "Hey, if you're not quite sure, give the advantage to the attacker." Okay, that's how you ruled it. Now we give the advantage to the attacker out because there's no advantage because you are literally able to look at it and either have the Hawkeye system that is very, very good. No, it's not perfect. And don't start yelling at me about the 0.00000005 centimeter difference. And oh, that's the margin of error. And, oh, you can't trust it then. Shut up. That's better than the AR's eyesight. So you have a way now to measure it and say, he's on, he's off. She's on, she's off. Straight up. So you've lost that idea of, in the game, I think the feel of it, that we want to see the attack have a little bit of an advantage. So I do think that Arsene Wenger's proposal on the offside law of going from, if basically any part of your body is offside, you're offside, to if any part of your body is onside, you're onside. So flipping it, basically you get a body length. I don't know if I explained that properly, but you get a body length. So if you get the advantage back, basically, is what you get. Yes, defenders are going to have to adjust. They already do now. That's how it happens every year. I think it will create a little bit more attacking. I think it will give teams a little more space to work in, and that should help make the game a little more positive, and which I'm for. I think ultimately we want to see more goals, but we don't want to see them in a cheap way. Is kind of where I fall on it. Like, yeah, I like games like yesterday, that 4-4 chaotic Manchester United Bournemouth game where Manchester United couldn't close it out. They fought back. They were all over the place. Bournemouth was all over the place. It was entertaining for the neutrals. I think fans of both teams are probably having different feelings than the neutrals are. Doesn't mean like every 4-4 game is great. Sometimes they're sloppy. Doesn't mean that every 0-0 game is bad. Sometimes they're wonderful. But I think we do in general want more goals, but we don't want them to come at a cheap expense. I kind of like the idea of the offside tweak and what it could bring to the game. I really do. I'm leaning more that way. I like the idea of golden goal when it comes to extra time. I am good with some competitions not even using extra time. I don't know if the Copa del Rey, I'd have to look at their rules. It's hard to always keep track of which competition does what. But Copa del Rey today into the round of 32. The La Liga teams are in. They're all on the road in this round, which will be fascinating. You get teams. I think Barcelona is at Guadalajara, which was part of our picks of the week here recently. You get teams in some odd places, and you get chaos. I think they go straight to penalties after 90 if it's level. I think I'd have to go back and double check it. I like that you have that possibility. I want to see golden goal. I do. I've come around on that. I want to see the offside rule adapted. I'm really starting to come around to the idea of the challenge system in terms of video assistant referees. And we talked about it yesterday with Bart, who understands it better than me from the referee mentality. I'm liking that idea maybe a little bit more than having dedicated video assistant referees. And maybe you empower the fourth official to help with the review process, and you go that way. It's interesting. I'm really starting to like that idea. I liked it in the Youth World Cups this year. I like the concept of it. I like how it feels. I like it maybe a little bit better than the more ambiguous video assistant referee trying to decide if should they step on the referee's toes, should they not? Is the referee going to respect them if they do? Is the referee going to listen? Is the referee going to say, no, I saw it better. I don't want to hear what you have to say. That creates more uncertainty for me. Whereas the challenge system is literally the coach thinks it was something different than what the referee thought. Hey, I want you to go take a look at it. I get 2 of these per game, so I'm going to be a little picky with it. I I think it could. I don't know. You don't get the punishment aspect of it. That's the one thing you don't get when you go comparing it to the NFL side of challenges. You lose a timeout on the NFL side, which I like the punishment because then it makes you really think like, am I going to do this just to do it and just to maybe just create a delay so I can talk to my team, whatever, or do I really have something on the line here? And you don't necessarily have that. I don't know how you create that on the soccer side, and really make it feel right. I don't know, but I'm starting to really come around the challenge system. Maybe there's an in between. Maybe there is again as the NFL has evolved. Maybe there is an in between of some things get automatically reviewed, but others you can challenge and don't get automatically reviewed. I don't know. I told you this was going to be a weird show. I'm kind of all over the place in the first 40 minutes. Alex, roughly the same challenge the NFL has when leaning towards more offense. Can't make it impossible for the defenders to be successful. Yeah, you don't want it to be cheap. You don't want it to feel cheap when there's more scoring. You look at basketball, and I've talked about this on the intersection. I haven't really talked about it in this space as we have explored using TikTok more and kind of that world. And the algorithm on TikTok is fascinating. Like, man, it sends me down some crazy rabbit holes of stuff. I've explored it. I've played with it. I'm posting stuff there. I'm at Jason Longshore on TikTok, by the way. Somebody had Longshoe. I mean, what's up with that? Soccer Down Here on TikTok also. Make sure you're following. I've went down some rabbit holes of NBA conversations on TikTok. I really like some of the conversations in basketball from a podcast space, from a creator space. You get a lot of former players that are involved right now, and some really fun conversations and stuff. And maybe I was a little more hardcore into the NBA and throwbacks for me. I mean, probably a lot of that started with The Last Dance during COVID, and you see a lot of those clips, but also then you get conversations about people, which we all do in every sport, right? People now are like, oh, Michael Jordan he would average 20 points a game now. He couldn't play in today's NBA. And then you get some of the old timers who are like, he'd average 50 today because you can't hand check and the game's changed. You don't want it to go too far to the offense. You want to allow the defense to be successful. But in every sport, we want scoring. We do. That's intrinsic, and that's okay. It's the people who are in charge of these things who have to strike that balance and find ways to give on both sides of it. It's not easy to do. It's not. I think we've seen baseball maybe with the ball being juiced a little bit, but allegedly, possibly, maybe tweaked a little bit too far against good pitching. Maybe they're trying to bring that back a little bit now. The NFL tweaked maybe a little bit too far about making it hard for defenders to defend. Maybe it's a little too easy for quarterbacks to not get hit. Maybe it's a little bit too easy for receivers to run, unimpeded. The NBA, I think, is a big one. I really think soccer and basketball, there's so much to learn from one another in the way that these games flow, and from a coaching perspective, from a referee management perspective, from a rules perspective. I think there's so much similarity because so much of the rules are subjective on what's a foul, what's not. When do I call this? When do I call that? And we know how games flow, and we know late in games, maybe the referee puts the whistle away a little bit more, both in basketball and soccer, and maybe lets the players decide it on the field. It's just the way things are managed. I think there's a lot to learn from the two, but the NBA is much less physical than it used to be. You watch the Bad Boys Pistons, you watch other teams. I mean, the Pistons of what, 2004 when they beat the Lakers? That was a very physical team. Probably wouldn't be allowed to play that way in today's game. Then you get into the debates of like, well, would LeBron be able to play back in the 80s when it was physical? Just looking at him, probably. Would others? Maybe not. Could guys adapt to having more room to work in? Some guys would thrive on it. Some guys wouldn't. The game evolves. The way we feel about the game evolves. The way we see the game evolve. It's such an interesting discussion. But I think in terms of our soccer space, when it comes to laws of the game, I'm definitely on board with the expanded offside, just by a body length. So if you are ahead, but if your body is offside, but one part of your leg keeps you onside, your body's offside according to the rule right now, then you're on. So again, basically you get a body length, and defenders have to adjust. I'm good with that because it goes back to I think the idea, the feel of advantage goes to the attacker, in the way offside was called before replay. Now, when we talk about challenges and video assistant referees and all that, we're going to continue to see this evolve, because if you go back to the history of this with the NFL, it evolved. They even got rid of it after having replay for a little while. Got rid of it, brought it back. It continues to change probably every year. What managers would run hot enough to blow their challenges out of the gate, Ricky asks. Um, I mean, one, I want to figure out how we punish a bad challenge. So you get two challenges in the game, if that's the way we keep it. Okay. I want to find a punishment for those. I mean, do you get a yellow card? Do we send the manager off if he has two bad challenges? That would make you think about it, I think. I mean, it's a punishment, but does it cost you the game? No. Is that the equivalent of a timeout in American football? It's probably a little more substantial, but is it really? I mean, the manager sent to the stands if you blow the second challenge. You do have the assistants being able to do everything. Yeah, they're gonna have to do it instead of the manager. I don't hate that. I don't hate that. You run the risk of a yellow card. Okay. We'll figure out the punishment for bad challenges. But who would run hot enough to blow their challenges out of the gate? Yes, I could absolutely see Piojo being one of those who just gets angry and says, "Nah, I'm going. I'm challenging this straight away." I do think you'd get some of that. That would be interesting. Who else would do that? Tata might do that, actually. Tata can run hot sometimes. I think we forget about that. We think of him as the kind, nice grandfather, but he is most definitely not. He can run hot. So I don't know who else would fall into this as we think about it. Peter Vermees would have. If you've seen the gif of Peter Vermees on the sideline for Sporting Kansas City, I'm sure he would get fired up and throw a challenge card at a fourth official. Look at it. Just chuck it at him. Who else would? That'll be Ben Olsen probably would. Ben Olsen would get crazy with it. That's a fun question. I like that. Thinking internationally, Bielsa would definitely be throwing some challenge cards at fourth officials for sure. Jurgen Klopp would have back in the day. Sir Alex Ferguson with the challenge card would have been hilarious. Jose Mourinho with challenge cards will be hilarious. Alex Basine with a suggestion. I kind of thought that. I'm not gonna lie because of our conversation about the 8 seconds with goalkeepers. So if you put a challenge in and it is not upheld, it is incorrect. So if you're trying to get something overturned or you're trying to get something that wasn't called, give a corner, an attacking corner. I don't hate it. I don't hate it. I think I'm leaning to the yellow card for the coach, for the manager. But I don't hate that. You have to have that side of it. I think that is the balancing act here because that's what makes it work in the American football context. Is you have something on the line if you're wrong. And I remember seeing, and I have to go back and look to see what game it was and what the situation was. I remember seeing a goal get challenged in one of the Youth World Cups, and it felt like, this isn't gonna happen, but whatever, I'm gonna try. And we get that sometimes with an American football challenge as well. I do agree with this, Wiley Coyote. Absolutely. If you, I'd give him two just because think about how many times we see and we stuff gets checked that doesn't actually go to an on-field review. I think maybe I would say no to this. I would go two, and you get it back if you're right. I would go to two, but if you do one and you get it back if you're correct and you get to challenge again, then there's going to have to be some things that are automatically checked. And this is where we write the rule to have a little bit of both. Yes. Maybe we do it and no punishment if you only get one. I could maybe subscribe to that theory, possibly. But I think if you only get one, then you need to have certain things get automatically checked. Maybe every goal gets checked, so we don't have that as a possibility. Maybe you are recommending reviews for whatever the outcome of that check is. So they feel like because you're going to get into some nebulous things like some offside interpretation things that are not purely here's the line. It's more of like the interference stuff. If a player's interfering with the goalkeeper, they say that it was. Coach says no, it wasn't. Go take another look at it. Okay, but I think you need to have some things get automatically reviewed so you have less if you have less opportunities to challenge. I want there to be less things you probably feel like you need to challenge. If that makes sense. So maybe it's the identity situation of if they give a card to the wrong person, that should be automatically checked. I'm good with that. Maybe it's every goal gets automatically checked. Red card decisions don't automatically get checked. You can challenge, you cannot challenge. I'm okay with that one because if you could just challenge everything, no punishment or no limitation, and you're going to challenge every red card to get looked at. No, we don't want that because there's some that are just blatantly obvious. But it's a big decision, and if you have the ability to challenge it and you might have a chance of winning the challenge, you're probably going to take that risk if it's a certain one. But if you have a limitation on how many challenges and your team's wild and reckless and you have multiple red cards, then you're not going to challenge everyone. You're going to have some that come up, you're going to be like, yeah, he should probably be sent off. That's a pretty bad challenge. It's an interesting conversation, and I would be curious. Look, I know I'm coming at it from a perspective of seeing how the NFL has evolved and college football and all of that. I would be intrigued to hear how in some other countries how this has evolved and how their feelings would be on this because I know rugby, for example, has some different rules and challenges and the way they use replay, and it's very different than what we do in our sports. Cool. I would want to hear that and see what works and what we can pull from that. Aussie rules might have some differences in it, so it's going to be an evolution. I think where I'm at with the laws of the game right now is I want it to evolve a little bit faster because I think the technology that we're able to use now has evolved a lot faster and is changing the game a lot faster than the laws are adapting to accommodate it. So I'd like to see IFAB and FIFA be a little more aggressive in updating, not radically changing, just updating because offside has changed because of technology. Okay, cool. Let's update that. The way we use replay, now that we have more technology, better ways to do it, ways to adapt it to the competition. I mean, you have replay in American college soccer. You have college soccer facilities that aren't like professional facilities in some countries that don't use replay. We should be able to use it in any context because it is an additional tool. Any game that is being broadcast, even if it is a one camera thing, the referee, you should be able to use the referee to look at it. We can pull up a game on a tablet right now, pretty much anywhere in the world from the fourth officials table. Okay, even if it is literally scrolling back to review it that way, that's something. And you're going to get more calls right. And that's ultimately what we want from a replay situation. We want the call to be right. I'm so against some of the people who are like, get rid of VAR, get rid of these things, because I want more calls to be right. I do want it to be quicker than it is at times. Although, again, just like a 2-goal lead being the most dangerous in soccer, we remember the times that it's not quick more than we remember the times that, hey, they took a look at that really fast and they got it right. Cool. They did their job. That's great. We kind of gloss over those. We gloss over all the times that you have a 2-0 lead and you don't blow it, which happens more often than you think. Um, I'm all for replay. I'm all for evolving. And that's where I'm at with the laws of the game, which ended up being a much longer conversation than I kind of thought we were going to get into here today. I've got a soapbox out. We got into laws of the game. That Manchester United Bournemouth game was absolutely nuts yesterday. The one stat that I pulled as I was getting ready for morning espresso this morning that blew my mind on this game, I'm trying to pull it up now. So, Manchester United at Old Trafford, at home, leading at halftime. They have not lost when they've had a halftime lead in 542 games in all competitions. That is nuts. Like, I look at this stat in MLS and yeah, if you have a halftime lead, you have a great chance of winning. Don't get me wrong. You have a great chance of not losing, maybe is the better way to put it. But 542 games, Manchester United has had a halftime lead and they have not lost. It goes back to 1984 in all competitions. That is one of the craziest stats I've seen ever. They almost lost this one, but they didn't. They end up getting a 4-4 draw out of it. Ruben Amorim talked about being frustrated. They have had a bad issue of losing leads. I think maybe the online punditry has softened when it comes to Ruben Amorim, which is good. He's also gotten better. I think he's gotten a better grip on his team. I think his tactics, even though he has his game model that has not changed because it's how he believes in the game, but his tactics have evolved and he's maybe adapted a little bit better to what he has to work with. They need more talent. If Manchester United's going to get back to being who they used to be and being really in a contending spot in the Premier League, they got to spend more money. They got to get more talent. They're not. I don't think they're going to have the ability to spend that money. And it really creates an interesting situation here where honestly they need to develop that talent internally because that's the spot where they can do it. But they haven't. And I don't know if they're gonna. And if they don't, you're $1 billion in debt, Manchester United. That's the current figures. You're $1 billion in debt and you're trying to build a $2 billion stadium. How? How? You had to cut the staff lunches. You had to cut those and give them soup and sandwiches. And you're going to build a $2 billion stadium and you're $1 billion in debt and you need to go buy some players. Mm, I don't I don't I don't see how Manchester United gets back to where they were without doing something that they did really well historically, which is develop talent. That is how clubs can bridge the gap. Then, especially if you're a Manchester United. Look, if you're trying to think of the right club to compare it to, and Maybe a little bit of Philadelphia, although Philadelphia's had success with their model where they don't spend as much and they develop talent. They've had the success with it. Manchester United hasn't had as much success with where they are currently, and I don't see them having it because without a cap in England, you don't get a chance to compete the same way. You just don't. Maybe it is Brentford. So Brentford does a good job of either buying low and then developing and selling high or developing. Cool. All right, let's use that. Brentford has a cap in how far that can actually take you because of the resources you have, because of the structure of your club. People are going to come buy your players. If Brentford develops a great player or buys a player young and then turns them into a great player, what didn't come from their academy straight away, they're going to leave. I think pretty much every club in the world, somebody's going to leave at some point. But bigger clubs have a greater opportunity to keep people for a longer period of time. Oh, the bots have found us this morning. It's probably all that chat about USMNT. It's probably the hashtag USMNT bots coming after us. If you're a Manchester United and you develop players and they come through your academy and they turn into stars, which you have all the structure to be able to do, you have a better chance of keeping them. And then starting to turn your profit and loss sheet around a little bit because you have engines that a Brentford doesn't. You have a gigantic stadium. You can sell merchandise with your logo on it anywhere in the world, unlike a Brentford. You can invest in developing talent, and then it can literally pay off in transforming your club back to where it used to be. There are clubs of that size and that power that can do that others are going to have a limitation to. Manchester United needs to invest in their youth development and get back to where they were. They can't guarantee they can ever develop another class of 92. Barcelona can't ever guarantee that they develop another class that they brought through with the Messis and Iniestas and Pedros. And I mean, that's a few generations, but that shows you how good their development system was. You can't guarantee that you get that again, but if you get a few, you can transform your club. And in my opinion, by doing that and having the way you transform your club being your kids, it creates an even stronger connection with the fan base. So, cap leagues like MLS, it's a little different. I think at Manchester United, the only way that they get back to being a top 4 team in England is by developing talent. And that's going to take time because they're never going to be able to spend right now, like Liverpool, Manchester City, Arsenal, Chelsea, actually quite a few others, Newcastle. They're not going to be able to spend like that. They're $1 billion in debt. Billion euro, I think. It might not be $1 billion. I think €1 billion would be $1 billion. I think it was €1 billion. It's the stat that I saw. So to be specific, and they're talking about building a €2 billion stadium, which they'll make money on at some point when they pay it off. I think Ruben Amorim can take them to a point. I think the players that they have can take them to a point, but I think it's a pretty low ceiling compared to the giants right now in England, and Manchester United is not one of those giants. And I don't think they get back there unless they develop some of their own talent. I don't see a pathway for them there with all the debt that they have. Speaking of that debt, it's interesting. Real Madrid, they are paying off some stadium upgrades, and they are also looking ahead, I think, to where the game is going and a smaller number of clubs having the majority of money to spend in the transfer market. And Real Madrid's talking about creating levers like Barcelona did to increase investment and be able to have more money to spend. They're trying to be a little proactive on that. We'll see how it goes. It's a really good feature, and I haven't dug all the way into it yet, into the minutia. A good feature over at The Athletic about their finances, which not many people have ever really dug into too much. So I'm intrigued to see where that side of the game goes and how it affects the game here in this country and how that side of the game grows in this country. Spend more money, you're going to have more talent. You're going to have a better competition. You're going to have better quality. These are all things that make sense. The U.S. is starting to spend more money, but they're not spending at the levels of these mega, huge, gigantic worldwide clubs. Will we ever? I don't know. Probably not. Maybe not in our lifetime. But do those clubs be able to spend the amounts they're spending forever as well? Do they come back towards the middle, or does MLS spend more, or do you meet somewhere in the middle? Kind of leaning to the latter. Got to get a sip of my morning coffee. I've switched to coffee if you have not heard. I know a lot of you were used to me drinking Red Bull in the mornings. Went to coffee. I don't mind a rainstorm, to throw another brand at you. Monsters rainstorm. I don't mind that. Never liked Celsius. Just don't like the taste of it. I think there was like one flavor that I was okay with. But yeah, I went to coffee over the last year, and I'm kind of enjoying it. It's kind of freaking me out. So I think I'm going to be fully into the coffee game and learn more about it. I don't know a whole lot about all these different types and different parts of the world where it's from and what it means and how it tastes different and all that. I'm not as up on all of that as I would like to be. I kind of right now stick to my Colombian coffee, and I'm definitely on a creamer and sugar and making it a little bit easier to drink. But I have fully become a convert to the coffee world. Maybe it was starting morning espresso. I don't know. Yes, I'm there. So I know that's kind of weird for some of you guys who've listened to me for forever. Let's see what else is on the board today. Copa del Rey, you can watch on ESPN Plus. You've got some interesting matchups with clubs you've probably never heard of hosting La Liga teams today. There's Ibar hosts Elche, which is two teams that are very similar. That should be a fun one. Deportivo La Coruña, who's been a top club for a while, but not lately. They are hosting Mallorca. Granada hosting Rayo Vallecano. Alaves is hosting Sevilla in an all La Liga matchup. Um, Madrid go to Talavera. Barcelona go to Guadalajara in Spain. It's difficult the way that they structure this, where the La Liga teams have to go on the road in this round. I don't love it. Yeah, Modiflow, I'm a convert to you guys. I've fully embraced the coffee. Um, I'm yeah, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. I will occasionally still have an energy drink, usually like in the afternoon, but it was always harder for me to drink coffee in the morning because of the taste. So then I wouldn't really drink it, or I'd just sip on it, and then I wouldn't get the energy that I needed. And especially after I got COVID in 2022. I mean, I was always an energy drink person, but after I got COVID and dealt with the long COVID effects for a long time, I feel like it's subsided a lot, but there's still an undercurrent of just easy to get fatigued is maybe the best way to put it. I don't feel like I'm in the situation that a lot of people are in with the ones who have suffered from long COVID, where it has a chronic fatigue syndrome kind of feel. I definitely had that for a while, and it was really hard. I feel like I'm past that, but maybe where I'm at with it is it's just really easy to get fatigued. And at times when my schedule gets to where it is, and it's hard sometimes to get the sleep that I need to do all the things that I'm doing. I made the decision to switch to coffee. One, because it cost, honestly, because I felt like I was having to go harder to energy drinks and drink more of them to get the energy that I needed to do the things I needed to do. And I was like, all right, let me look at this from a cost perspective. Let me give coffee another go. And I kind of tried the K cups for a while, and I ended up getting one of the duo coffee makers, so I can brew a pot of coffee, but I can also do a K cup, because there's times in the afternoon where I just want like just a little cup of coffee, and a K cup's fine for that. But yeah, I'll do. I never did Nose. Celsius, I just never liked. I tried it because it's supposed to be better for you. Never liked it. Hated sugar free Red Bull. Never liked that. I don't like fake sugar. Um, Rainstorm is Monster's Celsius variant, and that did really good for me, where I didn't need to drink as many of them, and they would last a little bit longer, and they were a little bit better for you. But again, like, and little bit better price than some of the others too. I don't like Rain, the normal Rain Modiflow. I like Rain Storm, which is it's their Celsius variant. It's different from Rain, which is I think closer to their Monster variant. Which Monster is like too much for me. The fruit punch one like tastes good, but it's just too much, and I never got the energy effect that I wanted from it. Red Bull is probably the best combination of it for me. I have not done Prime Energy. Haven't tried that. But I was doing Rainstorm for a while, and that was my go-to. And then I might have coffee later in the day, or I might have something else later in the day. And I was out of Rainstorm, and I'd been kind of experimenting with K cups a little bit, and started doing those more often. Then I started doing those in the morning, and I'm like, okay, I might be able to do this and do a couple cups of coffee in the morning, and that's all right. And then I graduated up to the duo setup from Keurig, where I can brew coffee but also do K cups. And yes, that is where I've ended up. Haven't tried the Quick Trip Energy, the generic Quick Trip Energy, but now I'm at a point now where most days I just drink coffee. If I'm on the go and I don't have time to pick up a coffee, or again I don't want to spend and get a coffee at a place where it's going to be a little more expensive, I might do a little Red Bull. That's my other one that I'll go to. The watermelon Red Bull is still undefeated for me. That's still the go-to, but I'll try the other flavors when they come out with them seasonally and all that. But yeah, I'm on board with the coffee. I've totally switched, and it's kind of weird, but I'm embracing it. I do need the creamer, and I do need the flavored creamer and all that. But usually iced. If I'm out somewhere, I'll get iced. But at home, I make what I make. So there you go. There's your window into my caffeine routines as of late. And yeah, I've found a pretty good balance of a couple cups of coffee in the morning, and I'm usually good for what I need. And then I'll have another one or an energy drink somewhere later in the day, depending on what the rest of the day looks like. Copa del Rey, I believe it is Barcelona today against Guadalajara, and Real Madrid, I think, is tomorrow. But let's double check that for you. Deportivo La Coruña at 1 o'clock, Ibar and Elche at 1 o'clock on ESPN. Yes, it is Barcelona at Club Deportivo Guadalajara at 3 o'clock today. Sporting Lyon hosting Valencia, Eldense hosting Real Sociedad. Those are their 3 o'clock games. To go along with some Gummy Bear Cup, Cardiff City hosting Chelsea today. And then we get into Colombia, and 7:30 tonight on Fanatis, Deportes Tolima and Atletico Junior. And I believe this is the cup final, if I'm not mistaken. I've enjoyed our friends over at Fanatis. Thank you, Bart. I'm glad to make you proud. Look, I still have some Red Bull from time to time, but anyway, I digress. It's occasionally now. I've pretty much stuck to the coffee. I probably don't like a lot of coffee drinkers would probably be like, "Oh, he's really sugaring that up." But yes, I am. Deal with it. The game tonight in Colombia, I'm glad that our friends at Fanatis have picked up more leagues. It feels like every time I turn it on, there's another league they have added. They added the Danish league via Chilean television. I saw that over the weekend, and that's awesome because the Danish league's one I really don't know well at all. But they have added over the last year Paraguay. They've added Peru over the last year fully. They have added, I think, all of Colombia now. They used to just have like a game a week on RCN, but now they've added everything from Colombia. I think even you get some second division stuff. Ecuador, which I actually pay extra for the Ecuadorian league because I'm a total sicko, and you get some second division stuff there. So I love that Fanatis has all the games for all the sickos. In addition to the French league with BN, in addition to Libertadores and Sudamericana. I think you get Dutch Cup with Goal TV with our friend Nino Torres. You get a lot of other stuff too, but Fanatis has really, I think, done so much for the game in this hemisphere. And I love being able to tune into a random game from South America at night and see the flow and see the feel and see players that, look, you're probably going to see in MLS or see around the world at some point. There's always a great story. So Colombia tonight, Tolima and Junior. That's a 7:30 match, and I will probably be tuned into that since I don't have Atlanta soccer tonight this evening. But Copa del Rey, I'm intrigued by the competition. It's always fun in this round because you get these weird games in weird little stadiums in Spain that you've never seen probably, and it's just always entertaining. So in the afternoons this week, if you get a chance, tune into ESPN, check in on Copa del Rey. Atletico is playing Baleares. It is a club that is second in Group 3 of the Segunda Federación with 27 points. They have progressed through 2 rounds of the Copa del Rey. They had a major upset knocking Espanyol out in the second round, and it is the first time these two teams have ever played. These are the things that you get out of this, and that's what's fun. That's why cup competitions are always fun in some of these parts of the world when we get a chance to watch it with teams that we just don't get a chance to see on a regular basis. Before we start to wrap up this edition of SDH AM, I wanted to get caught up on the domestic news, and some of it we touched on yesterday a little bit. Michael Bradley, officially the new Red Bulls manager. I think, and I don't know this for sure, and if you know differently, let me know. I think Michael Bradley is one of the first in the world in any sport managers to follow at a club that his father managed at as well. We've seen some father-son coaching duos over the years. We saw it with Bob and Michael at Stabæk in Norway, for example. But I don't know how many times. I'm sure it has happened. I don't know how many times you've had the son follow, not directly, but down the line at some point, follow and manage or coach a club that their father led. So it's kind of a cool little historical thing. It hasn't happened in MLS before. I do not remember it happening in other major American sports. I'm sure it's happened at the college level somewhere. What's up, David? Hope you're doing well. I know it's happened in other countries, but it's very rare. So it's kind of a cool little element to it. The other thing to watch with that one is something we touched on yesterday with I've always seen Michael as a different kind of player than a Red Bull player, although the Red Bull model is evolving. I think that's the other thing to keep in mind here. What will Michael Bradley get from global soccer director Jurgen Klopp, for example? What will he take from Jurgen Klopp's hopefully mentorship and recommendations? How will he put his stamp on the way that he sees this team play? That's a story I'll be looking forward to watching over this next season with Michael Bradley taking over at Red Bulls. We talked about Sergio Reguilon at Miami, the Jordi Alba replacement. LA Galaxy, they've acquired Jacob Glesnes and the homegrown priority for Jameer Johnson from Philadelphia for upwards of $2.2 million in GAM. I feel like that's a little high. Now, I'm not super familiar with Jameer Johnson. If Jameer Johnson, who is a Union Academy player, played for the U.S. at the most recent U17 World Cup, he's trained with PSV. If you think you can sign him and you think you're getting a first-team player out of that in a couple of years, okay, 2.2 million might be a good number. But if you're not sold on him, and if you're paying 2.2 mostly for Glesnes, I think that's overpaying. I think he's on the backside of his career. I think the Galaxy might have taken too big of a risk here. I could be wrong. I did not expect Evander to have the year that he had in Cincinnati. I thought Lucho Acosta was going to work out in Dallas. I get stuff wrong, trust me, and I put my hand up and tell you I got it wrong. I'm not going to lie to you. This move, when I saw it come across for the dollar amount, I thought, that's a little much. That's a little much. Seattle, they've re-signed Stephen Fry to a new deal. He's probably going to be a backup going forward, but it's cool that he's going to stay in Seattle. All-time leader in career appearances, only player to have ever won MLS Cup, Supporter Shield, U.S. Open Cup, Canadian Championship, CONCACAF Champions Cup, and Leagues Cup. He's the only one who's ever won all of those. The other thing on Seattle, and this was in 2-day NA recently, Club America, they are looking ahead to the next Liga MX season. They are interested in one Obed Vargas, 20 years old. He's of interest, according to Julio Ibanez of 2-day NA. They like him. They like his potential. But to get him, they're going to have to move on from Alvaro Fidalgo first. So the way to get Vargas is to move Fidalgo. Then they would have the money and the space to bring in Vargas. So we have to see what that looks like with Fidalgo. But it's being talked about with Obed Vargas potentially to Club America. St. Louis, according to The Athletic, they are going to name Yohan Dame as their next manager, 35 years old. He'll be one of the youngest coaches in the league. He's got a lot of experience. He was an assistant with Cincinnati, an interim head coach there at 29 and 30 years old. Ran Galaxy 2 in 2022, joined Wilfred Nancy in Columbus, won MLS Cup as part of the staff, won Leagues Cup as part of the staff. And it sounds like Dame got the job over Laurent Courtois, over Rob Valentino, and over David Critchley. Those were the other finalists, according to sources. I like Dame and just what we've seen from him during his times as an interim with Cincinnati. I think he's ready for this kind of a gig. I think when you look at guys like that are ready, I mean, obviously we're going to feel very strongly about Rob Valentino being ready based off what we've seen firsthand here in Atlanta. Where will that opportunity fall? I think being ready and being ready for a specific job are two different things. Being ready to be a first team manager is more broad. Being ready to be a first team manager at a specific club, different conversation because different clubs need different things. But I think Rob Valentino is ready to be a manager in Major League Soccer. I'd like to see him get that opportunity sooner rather than later. And if it doesn't come, I wonder what he does next. I mean, doing the youth national team stuff is awesome and great. But I wonder if he would be interested in going USL to get the experience and trying to move back up. We don't see a lot of people go from USL to MLS, and that should change. Danny Cruz is somebody in USL that I would love to see get an opportunity in MLS, and he's been a candidate for jobs, it sounds like. I'd love to see him get that opportunity because I've been really impressed with what he's done at the USL level. I think what he does translates. I think you see some people who've had success at the USL level, and I don't see it translating to the next level. You know, we see that in every sport. People who do things at a lower level, and they do really well at that level, and that's probably where they're suited to be. If you go up a level and you have maybe better talent, you have more pressure, you have more money to spend, like there's so many different things that complicate it and it just isn't for everybody. I feel like Rob is ready for that next level. I feel like Ante Razov is ready for that next level, and he hasn't gotten it yet. Mark Dos Santos is the new guy in Los Angeles. I always wonder when you get to that point and you're ready and you've been the assistant and you've maybe had those opportunities to be a interim at times and you're ready for the next step and you don't get it. Or you've been there and you look at somebody like Preki, who has turned into a really good assistant in this league. You look at, a Giovanni Savarese, who hasn't gotten a job since his time in Portland, and I have no idea why. From what I know of Gio, and I talked about it a lot when he was a finalist for the job here in Atlanta, it sounds like, I have the utmost respect for him, and we've had him on SDH AM, and John's talked to him quite a bit, and I love his analysis on Apple TV, but he's a manager, and I don't know why he hasn't had the opportunity to be one in a while. I always wonder when you get into that spot, either you're trying to break through and get that job, or you haven't had the job for a minute and you're desperate to get back to it. The decision making process at that point. Do you take a second division team? Do you go to another country? Do you just wait it out? Like, there's not a right answer for everybody. Everybody's in a different situation, but it's such a fascinating opportunity when you feel like you can do more in your job. Do you go elsewhere to get that opportunity? And for some, in some situations, that is the right decision. Do you wait it out and wait for the opportunity to present itself where you are? In some cases, that is the thing. Mark Dos Santos is finding that out in Los Angeles right now. There's not a perfect answer to this, and I'm just fascinated in the coaching scene. And Mark Dos Santos, yeah, is a retread to a degree, but also he went and became an assistant, and he is getting promoted at the place he's been an assistant. So it feels a little bit different. At times, you do see the retread idea come up a little bit too much. Yeah, David, that's a point. Like, because sometimes to get your first job, you're going to go to a place where you have that feeling that it's not going to end well because this is a job that's open. Do you take that and gamble? It's hard. I mean, Wilfred Nancy, like, I think the way he's getting treated and the way that Celtic has set him up for failure, it angers me. The comments that are being made about Wilfred Nancy, it angers me. The absolute stupidity of some of the things that are being said about Wilfred Nancy. It's very frustrating. But also, I will tell you what I said in our group chat. And I said this to Jarrett, a Celtic fan. I said Wilfred should run the other direction and not take that job. But I get it. He's done everything he can do in Columbus, and he can win more and be happy and stay there if that's what he wants. That's fine. But if he feels like the next thing, the move up for him, if he feels like that's to go to Europe, do you wait for a better situation? Or do you take one knowing that it's potentially toxic and knowing that it's a very unique situation in that two teams spend all the money in Scotland, other teams have started to push, but if you don't win immediately, it makes the job a lot harder for you. Do you want to take that? Do you want to wait? Do you want to stay? These are all hard decisions when you're playing with your career. And your career is only going to last so long. Coaches that last longer than a player would. Players run into this too. It's it's such a fascinating thing, these decisions. And I mean, we can all do the sliding doors moments for moments in our professional lives. Man, if I had done this, what would have happened? Where would that have taken me? Would I be where I'm at? Am I happy where I'm at? If I am, I don't look back at the sliding door moments as much and say, oh, well, if I had done this, then I would be here. But I might actually not be in a better spot than I am now. But then you don't want to ever be in that spot where it's like, man, I should have went for it. I should have tried this that I had an opportunity to do. I should have gambled on myself in this spot. You don't want to look back and have the regrets. Hopefully you find a way to make it all work in the long run, even if there's steps that maybe didn't work out as well, but you still take something out of. I hope that happens for Wilfred Nancy. I hope the good things come for Rob Valentino. Just such a good guy. I want the best for him. I want him to be successful. Somebody that it has worked out for, Jose Silva, as Ricky Ricardo asks my thoughts on Jose becoming the permanent twos manager. No brainer. What he did with the team last year was outstanding. I'm going to get a chance to chat with Jose tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that on the SDH network. Go back and check out the interview I had with Santiago Pita as well last week. A really fun conversation. And Santi, we got a little deeper than I thought we were going to get into. It was very interesting. Santi's a really thoughtful guy. It was fun talking to him. I talked to him earlier in the summer when he was first starting to break through with the twos, and to kind of follow up on that and pick his brain a little bit was cool. I've enjoyed my chats with Jose over the years. He's somebody that I've gotten to know a little bit as an academy coach and then an assistant. Um, I yeah, I mean that's the potential, right? And I think it's harder at bigger clubs to come all the way through and get that opportunity because your list of potential candidates is so much larger and you have so much more competition to move all the way up and get that spot. That's true. I mean, you can look at any major club around the world and that's a very hard route to follow. I was worried that because of the success that Jose had last season with the twos that he might get a USL championship or another opportunity ahead, might have had a bigger opportunity to go take. I'm glad that he's going to be here. I think he really, I like the way his teams play. I like his focus on developing the kids. I like how he develops the kids. And I just a good person. I really like where things are with Atlanta United too and Jose Silva, and we'll talk to him tomorrow and pick his brain a little bit on that. More questions, go ahead and throw them in. We're kind of in the AMA section of SDH AM today. It's SDH AMA right now. Ricky with a random question, and I got you, David, as well. After this season of finally going to Minnesota's new stadium and Miami's new stadium, is Snapdragon the only away trip in MLS you haven't made? Yes. Going back to San Jose for the first time in a long time. Been to the LAs, been to Portland, going back there again. Been to Seattle. Haven't been to Vancouver in a long time. 2019. Denver, RSL, Dallas. I haven't been to Houston in a long time. 2018 for Houston. Haven't been to Kansas City since 19. Minnesota, going to the new one. The only time I had been there was the 2018 game in freezing cold temperatures when Darwin Quintero was announced and he looked miserable being introduced to the crowd. All the Eastern Conference teams, obviously. So yeah, I think that's it. Miami's new stadium, we'll get there as that opens. So yeah, Snapdragon would be the only one that's left on the list. I went to Austin last year; that was on the list. So yeah, after that it'd be Snapdragon, and then it's Houston, Kansas City as the places we haven't been in a long time. We're lucky. Look, I mean, I say this all the time. We're lucky that we get to travel. A lot of radio teams don't. And you can absolutely deliver a great broadcast being remote. And I do that in some games that I broadcast. I do that for Georgia State games. I don't know if I've talked about that in depth on here. Because of Georgia State's soccer facility, there just isn't room for broadcast. So I actually call it from Center Park Stadium, the old Turner Field. I think I'm in the old visitors radio booth that they've converted into a little bit of a studio. So I call the games from there, and I'm calling it from a monitor. I did the Sunbelt Women's Championship match from the studios of the Sunbelt Conference at the Caesars Superdome in New Orleans. The game was played in Alabama. Both, what was really cool about it, and it's what I pushed for with Georgia State and what the Sunbelt was already doing, which I was so happy to walk into and see. You get a multicam look. So I've done some games, and I'm thinking with during COVID when we didn't travel, we just got the program feed. So we would either call it from like exactly the TV feed, or we'd get the clean program feed where we wouldn't get the replays and such. Trying to think of other places where I've done this. That's usually what you get in these situations is just the clean program feed. But with Georgia State, I can see all the cameras. So with Georgia State, for example, it's hard in some situations in a college game because I don't know all these teams as well as you give me an MLS game, I'm gonna know most of the players on the field. If you blindfold me and walk me into a booth, I'm probably going to be able to find my bearings really quick. College game, the visiting team especially, it's going to take me a minute. So it's good to have the like behind the goal camera to be able to see the numbers on the back line, for example, and who's passing to who and how things look and how they're building up and saying the names. That's why when I do play by play, I end up saying names a lot. Maybe I got some of that from watching games on Univision and TUDN over the years, and it feels like it's a very Latin thing to say the names a lot, and maybe it's not as much of an English thing. But it helps me lock in who's who and lock in where people are. So that's why, like when I'm doing play by play, I usually say every player's name that touches the ball, even if it's a TV game or a streaming game. I don't give you a full radio description of it, but I say who is on the ball. And it helps me lock in where people are on the field because I've found that my broadcast brain is very tactical board. Like, I need to know how a team is structured. And it doesn't matter, like, again, it's not about formation, but it's about kind of what area of the field they occupy. So then it becomes really easy for, balls down the right side, depending on their structure. It's a winger, it's a wing back, it's a fullback. I know the players that would be in those spots, and usually it's a process of elimination on which one is on the ball. If I can't see a number, if I don't know that player and how they move. Now, I've also found that when I call a team consistently, I end up identifying people by how they move as much as anything. We had to do that a lot during the COVID years with Atlanta United and the white jerseys with the gold print because you couldn't see anything in terms of numbers. And you had a lot of players in that era who were very similar body types and even similar haircuts and hairstyles, and they'd all dye their hair at the same time, and that made it harder. I love when guys dye their hair and there's something different about them because it just becomes so much easier. But I end up gravitating to how they move a lot of times, like how they run, how they dribble, how they strike a ball. And that's what triggers my player identification so much. So sorry, that topic went completely into a different section. But yes, Snapdragon is the one that I have not been to yet. And then Vancouver and Houston and Kansas City are the ones that I haven't been to in a long time. David, going back to Wilfred Nancy, dude left Montreal, who was not supposed to do anything, made them very respectable. Absolutely. Left when no one thought he would for a better roster front office situation. I think the latter was more of it because Joey Saputo's kind of a meddler. Yeah, Wilfred knows what he's doing. I'm totally with you. I think there is a very shameful situation with how the game is covered in some countries and how diminishing they look at Major League Soccer and the game in this country. Kind of spinning it back to broadcast. I mean, I have had this happen to me where I've not gotten opportunities because I don't have an English accent. That's literally been said to me, and that's crazy to me because the game's the game. I know the game. I know what I'm doing. I know how to do a broadcast. I know the sport. Just because I have an American accent doesn't mean that I know it less. Just because Wilfred Nancy comes from Major League Soccer doesn't mean that he can't be a great manager at Celtic. There are a lot of people who would tell you that no, it actually does mean that he cannot be good because he came from MLS. And they don't rate MLS, even though, frankly, Major League Soccer is a better league than the Scottish Premiership across the board. It 100% is. It's a more challenging league. It is a more demanding league. It is a better level of competition. It's more tactically diverse. All the things that you would want to produce a better manager, he's had that in Major League Soccer. So, yeah, I get very angry at I get very angry at anti-American. I want to say U.S. soccer. Let's be specific because we talk the Americas, then we're going to be talking about across the board. But you have that in Europe too. Let's not run from that either. You have a side eye being the default towards people, broadcasters, players, managers, executives, scouts, period, from this hemisphere when we talk about the game in Europe. And the game in Europe dominates a lot of the conversation worldwide, and that's fine. That's where the top leagues are, that's where the most money is. But they don't do themselves any favors with the looking down on some of the rest of us who didn't happen to be born in a European country and don't happen to have an accent. Um, they would really benefit from being a little more open minded. And I think the ones that do reap the benefits from that. So Wilfred's going to be fine. I do worry about him at Celtic because of the toxic nature of the media and how much it controls the narrative in Scotland. I watched it firsthand with Stephen Glass, who helped Aberdeen grow, did what he agreed to do, what he was hired to do in terms of playing young players and developing young talent and being a more expansive game model. And it ended up costing him his job because the media started to twist the narrative. And even though by playing, I believe it was Ramsey, the left back, and he gets sold to Liverpool for a record transfer fee for Aberdeen at the time. Even though he brought in that money for the club, he lost his job, and that's a shame. That shouldn't happen. The media and the conversation around the game in Scotland, and I love the Scottish national team. I love the passion. I love that, but man, there are some outdated ways of thinking in the way the game's talked about there, and the media and the punditry and all of it. And Wilfred now has to deal with that, and it's a shame. It's a shame. I hope it sparks a change. I hope he's got the resolve, and I think he does, to deal with it and put up with it. I hope the Celtic board has the resolve to back him. That's the part that concerns me the most. David, as I'm still in the AMA portion of the show, as we start to wrap up, yeah, we haven't done a remote game in a while. The last game that Mike and I did fully remote was NYC in 2022 when we both got COVID. um, that was we went to Toronto and we did that game in 22, and then we both got COVID. So we did the red because we were supposed to go to New York because the team was in Red Bull on the Thursday and then NYC on the Sunday. And we were supposed to go and stay in New York. Well, I tested positive for COVID when I got back from Toronto. I started feeling bad. I tested positive on the Tuesday. We are going to leave on the Wednesday. Um, Mike tested because he started to not feel great. He tested positive. So we couldn't travel with the team. So we ended up having to go back to our kind of way of doing it with COVID, where we could get the feed and the broadcasters and everything was going through Vista down in Fort Lauderdale at the time, as I think it still does now. Although it might be different with Apple, I'm not sure. They were able to send us a clean feed. We worked out of Mike's home studio because, again, we're both sick, so it didn't really matter. And we did the games. Doing a game remote, it's really different when it's different. One, when I do games remote, when I'm doing play by play versus when I'm doing color. I find it harder doing color remote than play by play remote. And the reason why is I think a lot of times on color, when I'm doing a game in stadium, I'm not looking purely at your TV angle. I'm not looking purely at the ball. I'm looking at players warming up over here. I'm looking at something that's happening behind the ball. I'm looking at a conversation the goalkeeper's having with a center back, for example. I'm I'm able to see everything when I'm in stadium doing a game color, and I can add those little nuggets that you wouldn't get otherwise. I can add that into a broadcast. Remote, you can get some of it when you have the multiple camera angles. That's great. That helps. I lock in a lot with Georgia State games. I always find I lock in a lot to the crowd mic and what's being said, and I try to pick things up from that I can use. I still try to bring you things that you might not see, but I have to do it in a different way. So for color, it's a little bit harder. For play by play, it can be harder, especially, and it depends on your camera people, it depends on your producers, it depends on your directors and what cuts they're giving you. It depends on a lot of that because, we did some games that I'm trying to think of some of the differences we had during the first era of COVID when we were doing games remote. I think when we would have there was a big difference in the way the game was produced between like Fox Sports South, Bally's, and Big Fox or ESPN. They all had a different look and feel production wise. So you're kind of at their mercy when you're doing the game remote, and you're hoping that your brain kind of syncs up with it. If I remember right, the Fox games then were really difficult because I think the way they did replays, and they used a lot of replay, which I mean, you don't have a choice. You have to just go with it when you're doing a game remote. Uh, it's been really interesting to kind of go a step further, David. Like having games on Apple TV and MLS Season Pass, and you can choose the home team radio. And yes, every season we ask for them to put the visiting team radio in. You have to be in stadium, and unfortunately, there's so many teams that don't send their commentators on the road. You can't do it remotely and sync it. I don't think. I think You can, but it's very hard to do from an Apple perspective, and they're not going to commit the resources to do it. And I understand that because it's not easy. You have to plug into the truck, basically. I wish they created the option for the teams that do. They do for baseball. Baseball generally always travels. I'd have to go back and look to see the baseball teams that aren't traveling or other teams that where you have this option they don't travel. Do they add the visiting team radio option? I think almost everybody travels in baseball, but you've had a couple who've cut back. The Yeah, David, that is true. I remember those days. I very clearly remember one game. I think it was Miami on the road, and the replays were ridiculous in that game. And we were at Colony Square doing the game from the 92.9 studios. Yeah, we were both fired up. Mike had to carry the broadcast, and he was the one who was getting affected by it the most. Which, if you can't call the live action, and you're the play-by-play, you're going to get affected. It's not good. Um, but doing games now that I know there is a large number, and I think I've never seen these numbers. I've seen reports on it. I know that we were very highly. I think the not ratings, the reviews and feedback was very positive of people listening to us on Apple TV for home games, which is amazing. And thank you to any of you guys who do that. I try to find a balance in how I do home games now, knowing that there's a good number of people. The majority of our audience who listens to our broadcast of the game is listening to it in a radio form. But a lot of people sync up the radio with the TV anyway. But now with the home games, with being able to, we're your TV commentators as well if you choose, I do stay focused on when they go to a replay and they're showing something. If they're showing something that is important, I try to capture what they're showing on the TV as well as call it from a radio perspective. Um, I have adapted to that a little bit. I try to make it work for both, knowing that we're going to be there. I know Mike and I have both talked about that, and we do a radio call. We don't change that. I lean harder with a radio call. Anything I'm calling, it's just the way I like the game. I think we separate it too much in English language of what a radio call and a TV call is. I will watch a game on TIC or on 2DN, and it sounds like a radio call to me. It doesn't sound like an English TV call. It's a lot of talking. I've never understood the idea that like it's better to not talk at all. If you're not saying anything good, then sure, lay out. And there's moments where you want to capture the emotion of the pictures or the audio that you're getting. Absolutely you do. But I think the idea of laying out gets taken to the extreme sometimes. And I do college games that are going to be streamed. When I do academy games that are going to be streamed, I definitely call it closer to a radio call. But that's just my style, I think. Um, that's just what I like, what I feel. I think it's what I'm good at. Ricky with a question about the MLS TV deal. Yeah, I don't think they're like bad inflection points though. Ricky says about the MLS TV deal that is going to cut a little earlier. They got more money out of Apple. Apple's not going to do the full 10 years unless they re-up, which they could. Um, it's not. I think a lot of times when we say inflection point, that it feels like it could go bad. I don't think it's that kind of an inflection point. I think the inflection point that's out of the league's control is what television looks like in 2029 and beyond. I think it's the 2029 2030 season that will fall under this, where they will be elsewhere. They'll be out of contract for that season. So they'll do a deal before that. But even a year before that, when you're doing a new deal, what is the TV landscape at that point? I have no idea what it looks like. Is Netflix and Amazon Prime and Paramount's attached to CBS, and Paramount's got their own conversations about what Paramount looks like next year, let alone like in 3 years. But the full streaming, like a Netflix and like an Amazon Prime that does not have an over-the-air component, a Hulu. What is their power base when MLS goes to market? I mean, Netflix has got the Women's World Cup in 27. That is crazy to me. DAZN, I don't think they're going to be at a point to be in this mix, but they actually did a really good job with the Club World Cup. Um, they're cutting back in some other countries. They haven't been as big here in the States because their focus has mostly been combat sports. But that's another full streamer. Does a Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime bid in the same way that an ESPN, Fox, cable? Well, Fox is not. This is where, like, the whole terminology that I get so used to, and I start to say, and I realize, like, it's different now. Like, ESPN as a cable has ABC as an over-the-air partner. CBS as an over-the-air has Paramount as a streaming partner, which gives them a lot of heft in this. NBC has Peacock, which gives you both worlds. NBC also has a cable setup in USA, which opens up some doors. So I don't know where it goes. And I would not even begin to predict for you right now because I don't know what the landscape looks like. But I do think that live sports of all kinds are only going to become more valuable by the time MLS goes to market because that's the that's the only thing that is appointment viewing right now. Everything else you can watch on demand and has done it. Yeah, NBC is reviving NBCSN, which is the dumbest thing ever because they got rid of it when they shouldn't have, and then now they're reviving it. Just dumbness, dumbness. But live sports is everything. Because it drives you to a screen of some sort at a certain time. Nothing else does anymore. Very rarely. There are a few things every year that will do that, but not many. So live sports are only going to become more valuable. But also live sports then get chopped into some of it's going to go to a streaming, some of it's going to go to a cable, some of it's going to go to an over the air, hopefully. I don't know. Do they go the route? Because here's the thing, and this is where, like, again, coming full circle on this show, the conversation around things doesn't reflect the reality. Remember all of the talk before the Apple deal of, I don't know where this game's going to be on TV. Is it on Today? Is it on Fox? Is it on FS1? Is it on ESPN? Is it on ESPN2? Is it on ABC? I don't. Is it on local? Like, I don't know where this game's going to be. We need it to be in one place. It all goes to one place. We need the times to be consistent. Times are consistent. This sucks. And it's like, well, what? So, like, you're never going to make everybody happy. That's number one. I see you, Bart. I'll get into you in just a second. I think with the growth of soccer, again, going back to the Nielsen reports that we talked about earlier, coming off of a men's World Cup and a women's World Cup, I think MLS will make more money on that next deal. I do. I don't know if they go with a primary partner, and you are seeing a lot of people look at elements of the way MLS did their deal with Apple and say, I want to do that. The worldwide nature of it is a major one that I think the NBA is starting to look at for what's coming. Yeah, I remember watching games on Facebook and Twitter as well. I think MLS will make more money because I think there will be more money for sports in general because it will have more power with advertisers because it is the only appointment viewing going. I think soccer will be in a bigger position. So I think MLS will make more money. I think ultimately getting out of the Apple deal early will help MLS because I do think they'll make more money. I don't know if they will go with one partner or if they will go fragmented again. Because you're already hearing, like, NWSL went the other way with going fragmented, and it worked for them in the deals that they did. But I see people say, I see this about WNBA as well. I don't know where the game is. I remember wanting to watch Atlanta Dream games in the second half of their season, and I had no idea where it was being broadcast between like 6 different possible places. So these are elements. That will probably get easier to manage as you're seeing apps partner and schedules being able to, like, I know Apple's done this. I can be in the Apple Sports and say, "Oh, that game, cool." And it takes me to ESPN or vice versa. Like those elements will help, but I do feel like MLS will make more money. I think they will have and the reach, I don't know, because I don't know what the reach is gonna look like by that point in terms of what aspect, what platform, which one. I do think they'll make more money, and I do think they'll have a fragmented deal. I think they'll be in multiple places. I just think that's the nature of where things are going. Ultimately, it's gonna be a good thing that they're out of the deal early, in my opinion. Bart says, I really want them to find an OTA partner that wants to have them and values them. Streaming is great for fans of teams, but we do need the ability to put our big games on OTA channel. Would love two to three per weekend in all playoff games. I don't think we'll get that on the back end of that, Bart, because I don't think there is a over the air TV partner that would value them in that way, sadly, because I don't think they do that for anything outside of the NFL. Even college football is not all over the air. I think the over the air component, and Mike and I have had this debate for a while as well. I don't get hung up on the over the air aspect of it that much. I don't know. I mean, I'm 48. I feel in terms of how I maybe have gravitated to technology. I think I did that a little bit earlier than a lot of people my age. So my age is 48. I feel like maybe in the way that I consume media, I'm younger. But even me, like I do remember the days of a antenna. And I do remember the days of like 30 cable channels or 40 cable channels. And that being it. Now, I mean, I don't turn on TV very often. I just don't. I generally, when I turn on my television, I don't go to over the air channels very often. If there's a specific game, I will, but I don't. I'll go to where I know the games are, which is pretty easy. It can get expensive. And as much soccer as I watch and as many different places as I watch it in, yeah, it can get expensive. Um, Good tax write-offs. You know, you do what you got to do. It's part of the business. But I don't need the over-the-air component, and I think in 3 more years, I don't know if people will find it randomly over the air. There is still the idea, and look, this is real. Usually one of the highest rated television shows every year is the show after the Super Bowl because people are too lazy to change the channel. Like, that's real. It's not what it used to be. That's decreasing because people have maybe gotten less lazy. I don't know. Maybe it's easier to go to an app or whatever, and there's more options now. So people are starting to change the channel after the Super Bowl. But I guess people just left their TV on and just watched whatever nonsense came on next. It still happens. But I don't think you need the discovery component of it. I think the discovery component of over the air has changed. And that's where, like, I find so I guess back in the day, I think back to the poster right here. That's a 1986 World Cup TV broadcast schedule. Actually, it's got the games were on SIN, which became Univision, Spanish Information Network, I think is what it stood for. Games on ESPN, games on NBC. The games on NBC, I don't remember watching West Germany, Scotland. I do remember watching Brazil, France, and stumbling onto that on NBC when I was a kid. Um, I think then you had the like, oh, I find it on an over the air, and that's how I fall in love with it. But I'll go back to the Atlanta Dream. You know, I haven't been a huge WNBA fan. I haven't been a huge basketball fan over the last few years. I haven't watched as much as I used to. But I really liked the WNBA season this year. I liked the Dream. I liked what they were doing, you know, doing the intersection show with Noelle on 92.9. She got me excited about it. But even before that, their social media, and yeah, the algorithms that sometimes we all hate, but I ended up getting fed a lot of dream stuff, and I'm like, I like these players. This is fun. I want to watch them play. Where can I go watch them play? That's how I think more and more people are discovering things. So I would love it if an over the air, and it's probably going to be an over the air tied to a streaming or a cable partner. But I would love it if an over the air is available for things. It's great. It's convenient, and it gives you a little bit wider reach. But I don't think it's as necessary as it used to be. I don't. I think now you can do just fine, and I think MLS did just fine with Apple this past year. I think the MLS Cup numbers back that up. I think the MLS general streaming numbers back that up. I know a lot of people got hung up on what did it average out to? Around 300,000. I think I'm simplifying it. Around 300,000 views per game on Apple. It might have been less than that. It might have been 200,000. Well, I remember seeing that ratings wise. I remember seeing like LA market stuff for their local Galaxy broadcast. And this is back in like 2018, 2019. I think it was either 18 or 19 because we were going with Atlanta United. They were drawing less than 20,000 people watching those games on local cable. We were drawing higher ratings with Atlanta radio than they were drawing with local cable. Um, that was real. So like I think you have more people watching more games now than you did before. Even if it's a bad MLS game that's on Apple and you have to be a subscriber and you're there and you're watching it. I think you're getting at least what you used to get with local cable. And in the bigger games, you're getting so much more than you got with those local broadcasts. Now, are you trading off some of that to get there? Yes, but then your Sunday night soccer games I think did well. I like that they expanded it to make things more accessible to Xfinity. I like that they did keep a Fox component to it, even though I wish Fox treated the league better and talked about it better. And that's ultimately what it comes back to for me to go all the way around and round and around the topic. ESPN and Fox did not partner with the league well because they diminished it more than elevated it. That's why Apple was a better fit. Apple elevated the league. Apple elevated the way they talked about the league. They elevated the production. They elevated everything about the league. So ultimately, it's a win, and it's more money. The league's in a different place when they go to market. Broadcast world is in a different place when they go to market. I hope that whoever spends the money to get this understands that they need to treat the league well. I've talked about it a lot on Soccer Over There. I think Paramount and CBS, as a parent, they have treated Serie A so well. They've elevated the league. They've elevated the talk about it. They've elevated the coverage of it. I pay more attention to Serie A than I did before because of the way that they treat it, the way their studio shows treat it, the way they talk about it, the way they inform, the way they entertain, the way they educate. Top tier, top tier. That's what I want for MLS. A lot of what we've seen from Apple, and maybe in some different places. So even different voices are giving you these things and it continues to grow. That's what I want. That's more important than being over the air for me. It really is. I think the over the air aspect of it is just not what it used to be. If I get it, great, but I'm not prioritizing it, if that makes sense. Let me see what else I got. So quickly going back to as we're bouncing around, David. Um, the constant left to right, middle third, attacking third. Yeah, it's not as relevant for TV or stream for sure. But yeah, I just that's what I tweak. Honestly, when I'm doing a game that's streamed versus a game I'm doing on radio, I'm saying who has the ball. I just might not be doing what I do for radio, where it is talking about the direction they're going, if they're dribbling, if they're passing, how that's going. I talk about who is doing something. And on TV, even when I'm doing play by play or if I'm doing it solo, I have more room to talk how and why in those moments than I do with a radio call where it is who, what, when, where. I get the how and the why a little bit more with TV. With a with doing color on TV, I get the how and the why a whole lot more because then I really get to lean into replay. And I can call for replays and I can do that kind of stuff, and it's awesome. With radio, I have to still balance some of the location and the who and all of that, but I still have to do the how and the why. So that's the way my brain works with it. David said, "What if we were like NFL and EPL and had MLS games at noon on a Saturday, Sunday, and non-NFL windows?" I do wonder about that, and I'd be curious. I know they started to play with some of the like afternoon broadcasts, like 2:30s, I think, and we've had a few earlier games than that. I feel like every time we go to Charlotte, it's an early kick. I don't hate it. I'd be really curious to see the numbers and how they compare. I know you do have because I think MLS and soccer in this country, we do focus on converting youth soccer playing families to viewers and ticket buyers, and that can be a little difficult because sadly a lot of the youth leagues are not going to say like, oh well, we just won't have games that morning, even though I wish they would because I think everybody would benefit from that, but they don't see that they need to. I would love it. You have a lot of earlier kickoffs in other parts of the world. I'd have no problem with it. Ricky, I totally agree with you. Friday night footy. I would love to see the Friday night game be the kickoff. Premier League's done this. It makes sense. Do a Friday night game. That is your start to the week. I do like the Sunday night game being special. That's your finish to the week. Cool. I think that works. That gives you two prime great situations. Bart on the time slots, 2:35, 7:30. No problem with that. I like when we've had that this year, and I feel like we had more of that this year. I like it. And look, my situation is very specific, and there's what 100 people in my situation in terms of like calling games in the league and traveling. But I love when I'm home or away, and we've got a 7:30 game, and there's a 2:30 game that day. Cool. I get to watch the whole thing before I go to the stadium. Awesome. I love when it's 5 o'clock and we're prepping for the game we're in and the game's on in the booth. Cool. I like when we are the early game. We've had earlier kicks in Charlotte because I remember I think the last 2 years we've been in Charlotte and I was home after flying back by the 7:30 kicks, and that was cool. So I love when you have a little bit of variety. I'm good with that. Yeah, I mean the Friday night footy, NWSL did claim it. I'm curious, and this is a much bigger conversation, and I will do this, and then I'm going to get to ESPN real quick, and then I'll wrap up because we've been over the 2 hours because I'm just rambling about all kinds of stuff today. Hopefully, it's been somewhat entertaining for you guys. The MLS NWSL situation, and now the Friday Night Footy conversation about NWSL's kind of staked that out. I would love to see MLS and NWSL partner more directly. It makes sense with USL taking the actions that they take and having a Division 1 women's league that is not Division 1 in quality, but is Division 1 according to a certificate that they have on their wall. The men's league with USL going down the same road. I don't think the certificate on the wall matters to me, honestly. And I think USL will be very smart, even if they have the certificate on the wall, to focus on smaller markets because they can own that space so well and in volume. I would love to see MLS and NWSL. They don't have to be in the same company. They don't have to be the same business, but I would love to see them partner more effectively. So maybe you create a situation where you alternate a little bit. And now that you have more NWSL teams and especially more out on the West Coast, you alternate. Make it Friday night footy and you have a 7 or a 7:30 game from the eastern half of the country that is one of the leagues. And then you have the second game is from the western half of the country from the other league. Now look, you're going to have to be business partners on this. I think you'd both benefit from it. I do. I think it would be a smart way to work together, especially when you have so many shared ownership groups and potentially more. And I think there should be more. It feels like a no brainer to me. I'm not cutting those checks, but I would love to see that. I would tune in for that. If I know I've got, all right, Friday night, I can watch, Orlando, Atlanta on the women's side. That's my 7:30 game. Awesome. I'm going to watch that. and then 10 o'clock we get LAFC hosting Seattle. Cool. I'd be all in on that. That would be cool, and it'd be groundbreaking. Get so much positive momentum. Um, when that happens, just remember you heard it here first on SDH AM. ESPN. I want to talk about them real quick. I know a lot of people go nuts on ESPN. Um, MLB. Yeah, they ditched it, but then I think ESPN came back into MLB and got a different kind of deal. Football is massive for ESPN, along with their studio shows, and that's look, it's business. It's not. They didn't drop MLS because they have a deep seated hatred for soccer, although there are some people there who do, and that drives me insane. As a company, they don't. They have done a lot with La Liga. They have done a lot with Bundesliga. They have picked up some other leagues as well, and the app is going to be important for them, although others have jumped them in terms of ownership of that stuff. Remember, they had Serie A for a while on ESPN. They've stuck with La Liga. They've stuck with the Bundesliga. They have the League Cup out of England as well. What I want to see from ESPN, I want to see what they do over the next few years in general, because they will be driven by NFL, by NBA as well. They have went pretty hard on NBA. College football, massive for them, and it drives so much of their day, even when football's not in season. And that's real. I mean, look, with 92.9, like, absolutely, football drives the advertising, it drives ratings, it drives conversation. What we're finding now with ratings is it doesn't purely drive it, but it's a huge driver. It is. And that's the nature of sports in this country. That's okay. Soccer has to understand that and play off of it. And MLS has to, and NWSL has to understand that and play off of it and figure out how it can fit and use that at times to its advantage. ESPN lost the World Cup years ago, and that was a big loss for them. They invested heavily, they benefited heavily from having the World Cup. I can't wait to see what World Cup bidding looks like for 2030 and beyond. Women's World Cup has now gone to Netflix. I really want to see how that looks and feels and is received. Does ESPN try to come back in for things they don't have right now in the soccer world? MLS, they have NWSL, they have part of NWSL anyway. They don't have the Premier League. They don't have Serie A. They don't have World Cup or any other FIFA properties. Do they go hard after those? Do they want to spend that money, or do they have the money to spend? Now, ESPN's business model is dramatically changing. They used to make so much money off of cable TV, and you don't make as much as you used to. Like, the rise of ESPN, if you ever get a chance to read about their history, the negotiators who were brilliant in constantly creating increases for how much ESPN gets from cable operators. That's what made ESPN what it was. 100%. They saw it coming, they got out in front of it, and they made themselves indispensable, even though cable operators had to pay them so much money for every subscription because you had to have ESPN. They figured that out. Now, streaming, they hadn't figured out, and other people have kind of cut into their market share a little bit. So it's interesting where that's going to go. I don't know what they'll do. I think, just going back to the fragmentation of it, I think that's another reason why MLS will be in different places in their next deal. I think the way these numbers have gone and the growth that you're seeing in rights fees and what leagues are able to command, they're able to command it from multiple partners and get more money from multiple partners because there's not many partners that can buy stuff outright anymore. It's hard. You have to get these partnerships or these sub-licensing kind of situations because of the costs for all of it. To make it make sense financially, you've got to find a way to mitigate that. So I do love this idea as well, and I'll end with this. Or oh no, I'll come back to David for one more. Ricky, I would love to see the Nickelodeon Charlie Brown style broadcast of something that would be really fun. I think you've got some commentators who would have a lot of fun with that. That would not be a game I think I would do well on, but there's quite a few people who would have a blast with that. It'd be fun. Do an alternative broadcast that way. Just alternative broadcasts in general. There's a lot of value in doing those. David asks about the USL Championship game. That was in Tulsa. Said the camera looked to be higher, wider. Many in WSL do as well. It's a little bit of all of the above. And yeah, Jarrett is going to be able to answer that in a little more detail. Some of it is your camera location. Some of it is the actual camera itself. Some of it is your operator, director, producer, and what they want and look and feel. But a lot of it I've found is down to where you can actually get the camera. Yes, we be on a Nickelodeon uh, Charlie Brown style broadcast would be great. Um, a lot of it is where the camera is actually positioned. There are some venues where you're just straight up. I remember the games at Nippert in Cincinnati because you literally were straight up. Like it looked like you were on top looking down because we literally were when we called it. Others like the camera is not in a great spot, so you have to adapt a little bit. Especially some of the USL and some of the NWSL venues where they might be smaller or might be a little different, funkier. It's not going to have as uniform of a look as I think you have in MLS now, and especially as you have in Premier League. Although, but you get different camera looks in Premier League as well. If I'm not mistaken, Stamford Bridge, Chelsea, is one that you feel lower compared to others. Obviously Yankee Stadium is very low because of the setup with that. That's a whole different kettle of fish. Other stadiums you feel a little bit higher just because of the way it's structured. So there are elements of operator, producer, stylistic look and feel, but from my understanding, so much of it is the actual camera location and the stadium setup and how it looks and feels. All right, that'll do it for this edition of SDH AM. It's been fun filling in. This was really fun, random conversation Tuesday. We need a hashtag for it or something. Lots of good questions. Thank you guys for listening. I'm sure I'll probably be guesting in at another point here sometime before the end of the year. You can always hear me on Morning Espresso every morning with just your daily catch up. You can get that as a newsletter. If you're not getting it already, go to soccerdownhere.net/connect. That's going to get a big upgrade for 2026 and beyond. You get the podcast of that if you're subscribed to getting our podcasts wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you. You can get them on YouTube now as well as your usual podcatchers and such. We don't get to do what we do if you guys don't listen and don't support it. So many of you have been with us for so many years, and we're just so thankful for you guys allowing us to do what we do and you guys supporting what we do and helping us grow and helping us provide more opportunities to people and um, grow the game and hopefully provide more opportunities to the game. I mean, ultimately, that's what it comes back to. And that's kind of been the theme today is I think it's on all of us who love this game to continue to help it grow and see it grow and bring more people under the tent to enjoy it with us. So that's something that we take very, very seriously. Thank you for giving us that responsibility. Thank you for giving us the ability to do it. And we'll be continuing to do it. We won't be doing it tomorrow with an SDH AM, though. We will be doing it with a morning espresso first thing in the morning tomorrow. I won't be on Atlanta Soccer tonight, this evening. College Bowl game bumps me. I will have an Atlanta Soccer flashback on Off the Woodwork for you there, though. So you can check that out on the Odyssey app or on the Off the Woodwork podcast series. John will be back on Thursday with Nico Moreno, with Nino Torres, all the usual suspects. And we'll have a whole bunch of other stuff coming for you as what we do. That's the SDH network. We're around the corner from everywhere, or we try to be anyway. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being part of it this week. Y'all have a good rest of your Tuesday, and John will be back with you on Thursday. Adios.